I'm Sam Goodwin, author of Saving Sam, and you're listening to Verbal Shenanigans.
But our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Yeah, I mean, his shenanigans are cruel and tragic.
Which makes them not shenanigans at all, really. Evil shenanigans.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
Hello, everybody. Finally, after the results of our Halloween episode, after all these years, I finally get a break from Mike Burlew, my co-host, who lost the Halloween game. So it's just me and you guys today. It's just me and you. We're abiding by the rules of the podcast, so welcome to an episode. This is going to be a fun hour and a half. This is going to be a really fun hour and a half together.
Scott, can you hear me? Scott, it's your buddy, the co-host, ready to podcast.
How do you just jump the line and get back on the show? I just don't understand this.
With my technology background, I said to myself, I could do my job that pays me salary, but I said, no, I'm going to scour the internet and try to find a way to hack into your recording. And here I am. And I don't care what anybody says. When the co-host is here, it's business.
All jokes aside, that it sounds like something you can do and would do somehow, where like, I'd be like, oh, Dom's coming on the Zoom room. And it's just you. Like over and over again, kind of like when you stole my wife's phone number somehow, which I'm still not over, by the way.
Yes. I can be Dom for the whole podcast and know, Scott, my wife is the most beautiful, wonderful woman in the world, and I would never lie to her. I every night I write a sonnet about her beauty, and every night I get mad at myself saying it's not as beautiful as her.
But we are coming off the Halloween episode where we took a little break for a week or two there. Life's been very, very busy, and we just kind of couldn't get it together. I couldn't really get it together, and just figured we'll cash in Dom's co-hosting thing. We'll wait till we have like a really big guest that you want to interview, and then we'll kick you out of some sort. But
Daisy Duke,
she's still alive.
Catherine Bach, yeah.
Oh yeah. So we had the two Dukes. We should probably work on her next. But yeah, got a lot of good comments on the Halloween episode. Halloween episode took a lot out of me, creating these 2-hour long games, and I got some comments on the Church of Pain interview. Our friend Alan over there. So go back and check that out. But yes, we are back. Mike is here again, so you're just gonna have to deal with it, folks.
Streak alive.
If I got to deal with it, you got to deal with it, people out there. But Mike, it seems like every time we take like a 2-week break or something, some major like earth-shattering thing happens in the United States. Or last time we took a little break, we came back and like we were like 2 weeks late on talking about Trump getting shot. This time we're like 2 weeks late now on, a week late here on the election. So we're really smart podcast strategies to talk about things like weeks after they happen. So nobody really cares about your take anymore. But
see, our strategy is when breaking news happens, there's 100 people, 100,000 people want to talk about it. We wait till it dies down and then we jump into that river. You hear me?
So I guess we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the election a little bit here. As I kind of been saying for the last 4 years, I thought Donald Trump was going to win this in a landslide, and that is pretty much exactly how it played out. Pretty much flipping all the battleground states into his favor. This is no surprise to me. I once again did not vote for either candidate. This will be, I think, my second election in a row doing this.
If you don't mind sharing, what was the plan? Did you go independent? Did you just not write it in? Did you
This
just
time,
not go?
this time I did not go at all.
Okay.
I usually will go if I have this opinion and vote on like the local election kind of stuff. But I happened to be working late that day, and it was almost 7:30 by the time I got home anyway. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. And I'm sure I'm gonna get flack like you're supposed to vote. Your non-vote helped him win. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
Scott, I hate to tell you this, but all the swing states were waiting for your vote. And when they found out you didn't go, they said, we're not going. And look what happened.
they were waiting.
Every single one.
They were waiting for the call to go vote.
Scott,
like, come on, guys.
I was in this Zoom meeting with at least 20,000 Arizonians waiting for you to join. And when they didn't see you join, they said it's over. There's no reason.
They were waiting for like me to drop the flag and everybody run to the poll.
Yeah. We literally had a live camera in your room. We had a blue and red flag, and we were just waiting for you to pick one of them up. You know, we don't want to tell people what you do, but we want that little hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And all night we were just staring there. Obi came in the room a couple times. He didn't do anything with the flag. He just licked himself. We didn't know what to think of that. So we just kept it going for the entire night.
In all seriousness, yet again, this sounds like something you have the power to do and would do. Just kind of watch me from your home and watch my dog from your house, just kind of looking at him as he doesn't move for 12 hours at a time.
Yes, I gotta be honest. I zoomed in on your bathroom camera, and I don't like the shampoo you wash him with. We'll have to have a discussion after the podcast about this. Also, I watched you bathe, so.
Well, that's good to know. But the Democratic Party, like personally, I think they lost this election as much as Trump won this election. I feel like put it this way: the Democratic Party lost me finally, like 2 elections ago when Bernie Sanders was running and he had this like natural grassroots thing kind of happening and people were inspired. It was kind of like almost Trump-like of the left. Like he was getting his own traction. He was going against like the big business, the lifelong politicians. And essentially the Democrats are like, nah, we're just going to railroad him right out of there. Here's another Clinton. Like, and I'm not like saying everything that Bernie said or was for, I was for, but I like when there's like a guy that has like a unique beliefs and seems pretty passionate. And it does seem like he cares about the country. Like he didn't seem like this robot that just, has been in politics his entire life. Like, well, he has, but like he hasn't been in big politics his whole life where it's just part of the system, part of like the hierarchy of things. And now it's 3 elections in a row that the Democrats have not even allowed you to vote in a primary. It's okay. Last time they're like, well, no, we just suddenly love Joe Biden. And we just all of a sudden just pushed Joe Biden into the office. There was no discussion. There was no anything. And then they do it yet again with Kamala. They're like, okay, no, you don't get to vote or even see like a debate between other candidates or start to love one and compare them to the other. No, here's your choice 3 months before. Deal with it. You sit there and you take what we tell you to do.
Yeah, and you missed the part where it was, oh, no, even though you're all telling us that Biden is too old for this, we know what we got here. This is amazing. This is the guy who's going to bring us to the future. And, he doesn't know what room he's in. Never mind. Here's the vice president.
Yeah. I also think there's a natural cycle of things when anytime there's, we're dealing with inflation. That's like the big giant one, affordability of things. Anytime there's a 4 years that people don't really like, I feel like the other party always kind of naturally wins. It's just like this natural cycle of going back to it's like in the NFL when you have a player's coach, the next coach you bring in is a hard ass, then the hard ass runs it, and the next coach is a player's coach again. It just kind of goes back and forth. But to me, the Democrats, like in some ways, it probably won't happen, but this could be like one of the best things to happen for them. They could really just wipe out all this old guard, the Clintons, the Obama administration, like anything related to that. And they actually have to work to start over again. and stop the nonsense. Everybody's sick of the overly woke stuff. Everyone's sick of Hollywood telling us how to vote. Everyone's sick of now all of a sudden they're the war party and the money spending party and the big. It's like they've completely flipped. So I didn't even think Trump needed to do that much to win this one.
Yeah, I will say I was a little surprised. I didn't go into it saying Kamala's got this or anything like that. I thought Trump could win. If he won, I didn't think it would be like an earth-shattering one or like the same kind of, well, he didn't get the popular vote, but he got the electoral. So I would say it was a little surprised, but not like earth-shattering. Like the night of, I literally got on my phone, every single like Facebook, any news app, any Instagram, anything where someone can message something, turned it all off. I watched rerun of wrestling. I watched the Aaron Hernandez story. I went to sleep. Like even as my wife was trying to tell me, I'm looking at it. I'm like, don't even tell me. Don't even want to somewhat get something planted. I want to go to sleep. Turn on the TV in the morning, see what happens, and saw it and went, okay, it happened. So, in the end, it just boils down to when he got shot, we all said, game over, it's his or whatever. Probably got a little suckered in because, like, when Kamala came in, I said 100 times and all, I said, I can't name one thing she did as vice president. And
sure,
I mean, maybe it's her PR people, maybe it's everybody worrying about Biden. I don't know, but like I can't literally name one thing. So when they had to go to her, and it was kind of surprising. I'm like, oh, there's a little vibe going here, and stuff is changing, and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, maybe it is the whole. Okay, we just didn't want the old man who's barely hanging on to his brain to come back for another 4 years. Maybe this will do it, but it boils down to is like they talked about, like if you saw, like you talked about Bernie earlier, he put like a whole thing on Instagram, kind of what you're saying. It's like, is this finally your wake up call, Democrats? Are you finally going to stop saying get off your high horse and say, oh, we're so much nicer than Trump? It's like, that's great. You lost 2 elections now because you just said that sentence right there. So.
And what did they run on was my biggest, like her campaign began and the high point was the debate. I thought she did a great job against Trump in the debate, got him fired up. And then after that, I couldn't tell you one thing she ran on. It was just like, yeah, we're going to make, things affordable for homeowners. That's like the only thing I ever heard her say, where Trump, listen, we've said it a million times on this cast. You don't want to follow him in a comedy club. He's just going to speak directly to the audience and say anything that is going to make them hear what they want. Whether he's going to do anything or not, he's going to say, look, the middle class is getting crushed. We're going to bring jobs back. You're going to be secure. We're going to be so. He's just speaking to what the people want to hear. And that's exactly what happened. Now, what happens from here, I don't know. I'm not happy about it. I'm not thrilled, but maybe this does start to take down the establishment a little bit and starts to reroute some stuff on both sides here, because it's just the same playbook over and over again. Just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be intrigued. I mean, he's got everything for at least 2 years now. I think they just officially said they have the House now, so it's everything there. And as I kind of say, I'm like I consider myself independent. I kind of like Democrats at president and Republicans at the governor level, because I always said like Democrats are going to do new things and governors on the Republican side is going to tie it down. So it's not like crazy prices and stuff like that. I always found that's been the best one. But I mean, in the end, it's the people talked. They just basically said, no, you don't just basically say it. I will say on one side, the Democrats, though that's not talked about, I wouldn't be surprised she got the nomination just on all those PACs, where I don't think because if you give money to Biden Harris, I think legally you can still say we're keeping the money because Harris is running. Like if they just said like Buttigieg or somebody else or Newsom or something like that, I think by rule it's like, hey, I can ask for my money back because I didn't pay for that. I wanted this. So
Right.
so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and I've seen some people a little upset. Like some people actually like, well, maybe he cheated. It's like, come on, people. Like if you're gonna cry about them 4 years ago, don't go the same path. It's like we all see the same thing. It's like magically there was no corruption in this election when they won straight out. Magically, there is no illegals were voting kind of stuff magically. Yep. So we can all see the hypocrisy, but don't join the hypocrisy, but just saying, well, maybe this and that. And
yep. But yeah, maybe maybe it's a benefit to both sides because regardless, we have only 4 more years of Trump. So next cycle is a complete new thing, you would think. It's a new, but like they used to be this party of like the working class. And I don't think I heard, like, it's not a coincidence. She lost in like every single like working class area. Like she lost in every swing state. She lost. They showed one thing. She didn't perform better in any county than Biden did in the country. That's wild.
Well,
so
yeah, they said that like when they turned to her, even Obama was at first like telling the party, hey, we should really, put some people up and have a real kind of like election to decide who's going up there. But that's why he didn't even join in on her at the first inklings of her becoming the nominee. But it is what it is, Yeah,
it is what it is. We'll see. Let's see what happens. Maybe this like going after like the deep state and the big establishments, if Trump actually does some of the things he says, could be a good thing. I'll give the guy. There's some things he says that I don't absolutely hate. The way he says a lot of things, I hate, and the way he goes about things is pretty terrible. But listen, I don't know. I feel like you gotta just roll with the punches and kind of see what happens here. And nothing you can do anyway. So,
and the key thing to remember is RFK Jr. is going to get a cabinet position. So we're going to be able to cut heads off of whales and bring them home on top of our cars.
And I've been waiting for that moment for a long time in politics. Yeah. If the Democrats ran on that, I might have came back after all these years. I might have came back and said, okay, I'm back, guys. Now the whale head thing is our main priority. You've got old Scotty B back here.
Listen, I mean, I want to keep my money, and one way to keep my money is not needing to use FedEx to bring back my whale heads. I mean, that's a heavy freaking thing, man. Even when I cut off whale babies' heads, I don't save that much money.
There's a audio clip for the ages right there.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I'm a fiscal man. That's why I kill whale babies, okay?
So, speaking of chaos, I had a show the other night. Okay, I had a show at the clubhouse that that is in my neighborhood. I run a show there twice a year. We usually do one in November, one in May. And they're usually like a rowdy crowd, but like fun, like not like out of control, but I like to participate and be silly, and usually it's a very good time.
And this is like your neighborhood show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm always a little nervous at these shows just because I know so many of the audience. They've seen every one of my jokes. I've written set lists just for the neighborhood before, like about the like really local stuff. They've seen my other stuff. I've weaved it in and out. I'll try to do some new stuff when I'm there, but
hey, who slept with Tom's wife? Show of hands.
Yeah. So I'm always a little nervous going into these shows regardless, but probably shouldn't be because I usually don't put myself in a major, so I usually just host it or just start it off. But just set up the show and I get there before and then people start rolling in. Good audience, about 100 something probably.
Nice.
And this big family rolls in, probably about 12 people. Now you have to be a guest of a member of the community. So this big table rolls in. They're like, yeah, we got like people from Vermont here. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Of course, they sit smack in the front. Okay. I go up, I start hosting, and within 3 minutes, I'm like, this table is going to be a problem in about an hour. Because they're like laughing before any punchlines. They're just like, ha, 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 like being really loud, like just table talk, talking to the comics, talking to each other. And I'm like, sometimes even if they're drunk, sometimes that settles out later in the show. Like they kind of become a little bit more mellow, but I could tell the whole table was not great.
Okay.
So I get off. I tell the other guys, I'm like, the table in the front is going to be a problem. Now, Franco Danger, good comic, goes up, has a good set. He's dealing with them. He's battling them, like, doing the whole you got to shut up kind of thing. Like, there's other people here, like, all that stuff. They're like literally like raising their hand and like just yelling things out. I'm like, oh boy. So he gets off.
Classroom atmosphere, your comedy shows. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So then our good friend Mike Sicoli goes up. Great comic. And he goes up and they're like unrelenting now, just yelling. So Mike starts to engage with them and like really tries to get him to shut up. And nothing's happening. Okay. They're getting worse and worse and worse. Now, keep in mind, Mike is not doing any type of comedy that is enraging them. Okay. In fact, when this incident I'm about to describe goes down, he was doing a bit about his own anxiety and having a weighted blanket. So he's not doing like Trump and Democrat jokes or
nothing controversial.
No,
gotcha.
Nothing racial. Like, so he started going, and then all hell starts breaking loose. This guy gets up. This little Napoleon guy, he's probably 5'3", starts yelling at Mike, stands up, starts like kind of approaching the stage. Then I don't know if they were his sons or not. Two sons start yelling, blah, blah, blah. They're yelling things out the whole time. Now the audience is starting to join in, like, sit down, shut up, like enough. And I said to the two other guys that helped me run the show, we got to get him out of here. Like they got to go. Now, keep in mind, there's no security. This is like a local fundraiser-y type of show.
I was about to ask, like, who is security? Like the 70-year-old man at the VFW who just sits on a stool?
No, you're talking to him right now, buddy. Security apparently is me. Okay, so I'm like, all right. I go out there. I'm like, you got to go. You guys got to go. And everybody's screaming, yelling. There's a mom of someone at the table. She's like crying because like her two boys are acting like imbeciles. Everyone's like yelling at each other. So we start to kick them out and they start to go and people are like, yeah, they gotta go. And they're like fighting all the way to the door. We finally like get them out the door. Like, I don't know if these guys are they're drunk out of their mind. I don't know if they're gonna try to swing. They're gonna, they're trying to sucker punch one of us. Like, it's not a great situation to be in. Never mind doing this alone, but also being the MC of the show. Like, it's a little bit of a weird predicament I found myself.
I wish they like started a fight in between comedians while you're trying to do crowd work while punching them in the face.
I'm telling you right now, if anybody ever approached that stage, that mic stand would be through their head. I do not play around with that. I think it's one of the most disrespectful things you could do.
Okay.
But anyway, we kick them out. They go out. And then they start fighting with each other in the parking lot. So now that there's like two or three of them at each other's faces, like screaming at each other. And then some of them start to come back towards the show. And we're like, oh, God, here we go. One guy, the Napoleon guy, comes in. He's like, look, man, I ain't trying to start no trouble. I just need my cell phone. I don't care what that is. I just need it. We're like, okay, we can go get it for you. Is it at the table? I don't know, man. I don't know. So eventually his wife or girlfriend or someone goes and gets his cell phone. One couple comes up to us. They're like, can we get a refund? We don't feel safe here. And the husband's like, come on, babe, come on. So we refund them. and the bitch stays the rest of the show.
Oh,
She gets refunded and then just sits back down and watches the rest of the show.
that's classic, man. I got to give a golf clap to this lady, man.
Man, she's finding the system and all. She's like, that's Christmas money back in my pocket.
So, we do get him out. Mike, I give Mike like an extra 15 minutes. Like just go, like have some time, and he does well. Gets the crowd back going, and everybody's having a good time. And like I go up afterwards, and I'm like, you know what? Like I say,
Did he go back to his anxiety jokes after that? Because it kind of makes sense.
That's a good question. I don't know if he ever finished that bit. But I go up and I'm like, I'm just getting them. So I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but that is just unacceptable to any kind of artist, musician, blah, blah. I said, you have 4 options at a comedy show as far as I see it. Laugh. Don't laugh. It's not your job to laugh.
The number one answer.
Yeah. You don't have to laugh at a single thing. You could say the show sucked. You could say the comics suck. That's totally right. The other options are stay or leave, right? You can leave at any time you want. Comedy show, you could just like you could turn off the radio to a song that you don't like, you could leave the comedy show. Yeah, you might not get a refund, but you have that option to leave. No one is forcing you to sit there. But the minute I really think it's these people, they see these internet clips, they want to be part of the show, they see these crowd work clips of these comics, and it's becoming worse and worse over time.
I could have done better. Instead of the person saying, I could have made it in the majors if I didn't get an arm injury, now it's I could have thrown Bill Burr off of that stage.
Yeah, they watch these Matt Rife videos where he's just interacting with the crowd, and they bring him and he's like lights them on fire, and they laugh. Meanwhile, he's one of the top touring comics in the world. They're not doing a VFW hall with a bunch of drunk people. No, well, not that I know.
Start,
but. Yeah, just and then Chip Chantry, who was the headliner, he was very thankful because he got to go up to a nice, happy crowd and close the show. But man, like, and I kind of took a little comedy hiatus. I only performed a couple times in the last 6 months because of the baby and stuff like that. So I was like, this is not the way I wanted to come back into it. So. But anyways, that is another wonderful comedy story. So for all you fledgling comics that want to get into this, these
aspiring comedians, make sure that you have your self-defense courses prepared when you go into these events. Make sure when you give a refund to escort them out of the building so they don't get free comedy. Make sure when the comedian's doing an anxiety bit and a fight breaks out to go, bro, that's a tie-in. Yeah. Go back to the bit, man. Don't let it die.
Yeah. So like this is what you deal with at some point of your career, unless you're doing like shows for your friends all the times. We laughed about it. We had drinks afterwards, chuckling about it and stuff like that. But man, it was pretty shitty there for a good 10, 15 minutes. It was kind of had no idea what was going to happen or how that was going to turn out. So, and now
are you going to go now touring to other neighborhoods saying my neighborhood sucks? I'm going to go to Johnson Street over there and start doing comedy there. They know how to treat comedians.
Well, it is part of my worry as the next one will roll around in May. Like, is this what people in the neighborhood are going to think this is what it's like now, and not want to go from the last experience?
Maybe on the flyer you put on there, no Vermontians allowed.
Vermontians, yeah.
Yes. If you like real maple syrup, you ain't in my comedy show. Do you hear me?
Yeah, but anyway. Let's segue here. Mike, who we got on the show tonight?
Tonight, Scott, we are talking with a world traveler and author of the book Saving Sam, Mr. Sam Goodwin. He is one of the very select people to have traveled to all 193 countries in the world, and he has an incredible story to tell us about
being jailed and needing to be rescued out of the country of Syria. It's just an amazing story to hear, and we're going to let Sam Goodwin tell you good people all about it. And no, he didn't get arrested because it was a comedy show Scott was having in Syria.
Let's get him on the line right now.
Hey guys,
Hey,
Hey,
Sam, how's it
Sam.
going?
going well. It's great to connect here. I appreciate you guys reaching out.
Of course, man.
Oh, our pleasure, man. Our pleasure.
So where are you? Where are you guys?
I am in Georgia. I used to be in New Jersey. That's where Scott lives right now.
Okay.
How about you? Where are we calling you at?
Well, yeah. So I live in DC, but I'm actually in St. Louis right now, just visiting my parents for a few days. This is where I grew up.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, Sam, welcome to the show. Obviously, you've visited 193 countries, and we're going to get into everything that went into what happened in Syria. So, the obvious first question is, as a former Division One hockey player, when the hell will the Flyers be any time decent?
Yeah, I'm a Blues fan, and I don't really. Sometimes the teams out in the East, we don't really hear much about them, so I'm not really sure how they're doing these days. But they've had some good years in the past, so hopefully there'll be for any Flyers fans, hopefully there's some
No,
glimmers of
not
hope.
not
I
not
don't
hope.
know.
No,
Well, we
no.
haven't been keeping track, here's the top of the standings. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There's the Flyers.
All right. I was trying to be optimistic, but you guys, cut right to the chase there.
So, Sam, tell everybody a little bit about your background before we get into the main story. I know you were you had like a tech company in Singapore, but kind of give us an idea of your journeys to go through all the countries in the world.
Yeah, so I'm originally from and grew up in St. Louis. I'm the oldest of five. Spent a lot of my upbringing playing competitive hockey. Was fortunate to have some success with the sport and play Division One in college at Niagara University. When I finished there, I took my first professional job in Singapore, and I originally only planned to be in Singapore for about 3 months, but ended up staying for 6 years. And it was a great opportunity. As you mentioned, I was working for a tech startup company and a regional NGO that was doing development work around Southeast Asia. And throughout that time, I traveled as much as I could and was in the heart of Southeast Asia, the world's best airport in my backyard, and so on, and took advantage of the opportunity to explore as much of the region and beyond as possible. And just a personal preference when I traveled, I didn't like to repeat places. So even if I went somewhere and had a great experience, the next weekend, the next holiday, the next opportunity I would just go somewhere different. And I put that formula into play for about 6 years. And in early 2018, I realized that I had traveled to about 120 countries in the world. And it was at that point when I remember thinking, well, how many are there? I always travel because it was fun and I enjoyed it. But most importantly, I learned from it. Travel is the best education I'd ever had. It was never about ticking boxes or checking places off a list. But I got to this point and I did a little bit of research and learned that there are 193 fully recognized UN sovereign states. And I thought, well, maybe I could go to all of them. And the competitive athlete kicked in, likes to work towards goals and achieve them. So that's kind of how it all started. It was very organic.
I mean, that's pretty impressive that you got to 120 something without even you're pretty much more than halfway there. Like it's a pretty impressive list.
Thanks. Yeah. And living and working overseas, especially in a place like Singapore that's so well located geographically, was, sort of cheating in a way, but it was it was a great place to be based. And that's kind of how things evolved.
So what did you start doing? You're traveling constantly, you're exploring, you're vacationing, you're kind of finding your way. But what did you decide to, okay, I'm going to roll this into work. I'm going to start to, I know you said you had a tech company, but where was the beginnings of that? And how were you able to stay in Singapore for so long?
Yeah. So I connected with a tech company in Singapore and was employed there for 6 years. And it was a great experience. I loved my time there. I consider it to be a second home, but that was how I was able to stay there, was just I was working there.
Just working. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one crazy thing I I found out when researching you, you actually coach hockey in North Korea. How does that kind of opportunity come up, and like how safe is the surroundings when you get to go to a place like that?
Yeah, in 2016, I there was a Canadian man who was living in China. He was looking to do a kind of cultural exchange or sports exhibition, so to speak, to North Korea and play and coach their national hockey team. And again, I was a hockey player my whole life, and I was already in the region, and so we got connected, and he invited me to go on this trip. And I went and spent a week there coaching and playing alongside the local players. And I have to tell you guys, I had a fantastic experience. We were treated like royalty. It was incredible. And I'm not oblivious to the fact that I saw what they wanted me to see, and, and getting off that tourist track, so to speak, things it can look very different, but we were treated so well. And it was really a memorable experience to use hockey as a way to build a cultural bridge. Frankly, with these people, I didn't have too much in common with them, given the life that I've been fortunate to live. But once we got out on the ice, we knew exactly how to work together to score goals. Our relationship kind of ran like this Swiss watch very well, and nobody cared about demarcation lines or nuclear weapons or political discrepancies. And so it was a real memorable experience to be able to use hockey to build those type of relationships.
It's pretty interesting. It's so as you're traveling, you start to, like you said, mentally check off the box and whatnot. How do we get closer to your pretty remarkable story that we're going to get into? Like, how did you end up in Syria?
So when I got to about 120 countries, I decided I was going to give it a shot and try to travel to the rest of them. And I had no idea if I could do it. It might fail miserably. I didn't even know what that would look like. But I became committed to working toward achieving something that I thought was extraordinary. So I set out. I left Singapore and decided to take about a year to try to visit the home stretch of this goal. And it was in May of 2019. I had traveled to 180 of 193 countries. So there were only a few remaining, and that was when I traveled to Syria.
Now, give us kind of an idea. Like, I know a lot of, like, I remember we had a world traveler on our show before, Mike Corey. He's done many different.
Oh yeah, I know Mike.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
I haven't met him in person, but we're social media friends, and we've had some messages, and he puts out some great content. I really enjoy following his stuff. He does crazy. He goes like swimming with anacondas and like eats tarantulas and stuff. It's
yeah, hanging by hooks, all that stuff. That was a great interview, and we kind of talked about like some of the pitfalls again, some countries. I think like Turkmenistan was one that's like near impossible to get into. As you've been the world traveler and you're leading up to Syria, was there any red flags to go into it to give you any idea of what was going to happen? I know it's near impossible to figure what happened to you, but was there any kind of extra red flags where it's like, ooh, this is going to be a tough one here?
One of the most compelling or interesting things for me that I learned on my travel journey is that places that are negatively perceived, or that Western media tells us we're not supposed to like, these were truly many of the same places where I had my best travel experiences and where my perspectives were most meaningfully impacted. So despite everything that was happening in Syria, all the instability, a decade of conflict, I was still confident that the same was going to be the case. And that's not to say that going into the country was necessarily comfortable. I mean, after all, it was still Syria, a country that's, and even being on the other side of the country, away from the conflict, there was still instability. So there was still a lot of things going through my head, but overall, it was kind of this balance, as it had been throughout my entire journey, of balancing this perspective that I had with always prioritizing safety as at the top of the list. I mean, I don't think it's cool to be in unsafe situations. I don't go looking for trouble, but I was committed to completing my travel journey, one that required a lot of creativity and flexibility and resourcefulness.
Now, when you get that high on the list, like, how do you decide what country is going to be the last destination out of all of them?
Yeah, so the last country ended up being Brazil, and
Wow.
it wasn't. Yeah, it part of it was geographic, because we kind of finished in South America, but I also wanted a place where I could have some friends and family come and be there and enjoy it. I didn't want the last one to be like,
Yeah.
like Afghanistan or something like that. So that was kind of how that came together.
So I think we'll just hand off to you the story, because obviously we can't give it as justice as you can obviously tell by living it. So you get into Syria, you're in the country for a couple hours. Kind of tell our audience what happened next after that.
Yeah, just 2 hours after arriving, as you mentioned, Mike, I was walking through a roundabout on the way to meet up with my guide when all of a sudden a black pickup truck abruptly pulled up next to me. Two armed men jumped out of the back seat and instructed me to get inside. And thankfully, they weren't violent, but I didn't have a choice. I was scared, confused. I had no information or anyone to help. I was desperately trying to understand what was happening. And these men were loyal to the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, and told me that they were skeptical about my travel history and my travel motives. And as we sped down back alleys of the city, the officers in the vehicle accused me of espionage, of being an American spy and collaborating with terrorists. And nothing like this had ever happened to me before. And I was taken to a facility that taken into the basement of a facility that I now know is called Syria's Military Intelligence Prison number 215, a facility notoriously known for housing political prisoners. And the officer in charge, he spoke a little bit of English, and I'll never forget, he escorted me to a cell in the back of the basement. And when he put me in there, he went to the like the inside of the cell door, and he said, "Food, water, toilet, knock. Otherwise, quiet, no talking." And he slammed the door and left. And I was stunned and in disbelief about what had happened in just a few short hours. My life had spiraled out of control in the most terrifying of ways. I frankly, guys, I felt exactly the way they wanted me to. Hopeless, utterly cut off from any control of my life. And thankfully, the cell wasn't too small. I could walk around just a little bit, but it had no window. It was all concrete. I had nothing but a small blanket to lay on the concrete floor as a bed. And I remained here in solitary confinement for 27 days. The only human interaction I had was for a few seconds in the morning and evening when the guards brought bread and boiled potatoes and water.
So as you're going through this, like, okay, are your initial thoughts like, okay, this is a misunderstanding, I'm going to be out of here shortly, somebody's going to come clear this up for me? And then when did the realization kick in that, like, I'm not getting out of here anytime soon? And like, was it pure doom and gloom for you? Like, what was getting you through this crazy time?
There are several stages of this. So the first part is just shock. It was as if the floor of my life had been ripped out from underneath me dramatically and instantaneously. And then it moves to confusion, and then it moves to anger, and then it moves to despair. So there are these different phases. But I remember early on, to kind of answer your question, did you guys ever play Mario Kart
Yes.
Mhm.
Of course. So in those first couple of hours, I remember thinking to myself, I was comparing my situation to a game of Mario Kart, and as if I had driven like off a cliff or something. And what
The
I was
guy
trying
comes
to
back.
do, just come back, just restart. I'm just going to restart this race. I need to go back, a couple hours, just going to restart. And so like those types of things are going through my mind. I mean, at one point early on, I was everything, all these crazy things were going through my mind. But at one point I was expecting like Ashton Kutcher to swing open the cell door and be like, you got punked. Right. So there were all these like memories that were burning in my head as I tried to cope with this shock.
So you're in this impossible situation. You barely can talk to the guards. There's nothing that you can really do in that side. Like, how long was it before they started like bumping up? Like, when was like the first time they kind of like talked to you about what were you spying on or anything like that?
That really didn't happen until day 23. So after 3 weeks, and I'll also quickly mention. So I recently just about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I published a book, and it talks about this whole story. I have it right here. It's called Saving Sam, and so it goes into a lot of these details. But essentially, on day 23, they brought me up to the street level of the prison, and on day 23 and 24, for several hours on both days, I was interrogated by, interestingly, a man who spoke perfect English, but I was handcuffed and blindfolded the entire time, so I never saw him. And the overview of it was they started with basically the day I was born and asked me questions about my entire life, my upbringing, playing hockey, where I went to school, my travel, Singapore, and of course, like why I came to Syria. And I told them I'm traveling to every country. That's what I'm doing. And they were having some trouble believing that. And then that kind of evolved in into some other aspects of the interrogation, where at one point they told me that if I didn't start telling the truth, that they would hand me over to ISIS, which was absolutely terrifying. There were other times when they asked about my family and asked about the details of my travel journey and the details of how I came into the country. And I don't have all of the information as far as an analysis of what was all going on, but I do believe that they thought that I was some kind of threat to their national security, and they treated me as such. And I just couldn't be more grateful that things ended peacefully, and that's what I talk a lot about in my book. But that was the interrogation on day 23 and 24, which is when they kind of started to talk.
It's like I'm getting like the feeling like like when a cop is driving behind you and you're not doing anything wrong, but instantly the nerves start pinging. I'm wondering, that must be amplified by like 3,000 when you're being interrogated and you're telling the truth and you didn't do anything wrong, but eventually I'm sure you have to start almost feeling like you're doing something wrong, like you're forced to admit something.
There was a little bit of that, and I think they were looking for that, and so it kind of got me second guessing. Like, did I do something wrong? Do I have nefarious intentions in this country? Like, and so it's kind of this mind game, and it was it was equally kind of emotionally and physically exhausting to try and cope with the situation.
When you're in that situation, now curiosity, like, are you trying to like keep yourself calm for answering? Are you trying to keep not to cry, not to get angry? Like, what's the hardest thing you're trying to tell yourself as you're trying to answer these questions?
The most challenging part about the situation in solitary confinement for a month was the uncertainty. And what I mean by that is this, and sometimes I say this to family and friends, and I'll say it to you guys. If I told both of you that you were going to go and be in the dungeon of a prison cell for 27 days. You're going to eat bread, boiled potatoes, and water. You're going to sleep on the concrete floor. You're going to hear people around you being tortured, but you're not going to be physically harmed. And on day 27, you're going to be taken out. Now, I'm not saying that either of you would be comfortable. But what I am saying is that it's a completely different situation having that finish line. You know that at day 27, you're getting out. And I didn't have that. I was engulfed in uncertainty. And I didn't even have any information that could eliminate a possible outcome from the table in my mind. What I mean by that is, based on the information that I had, I thought that I could be released in a week. I thought I could be released in 5 minutes. Was I going to be in that cell forever? Based on the information I had, I thought that was possible. Were they going to torture me or just open the door and shoot me or stop feeding me? Based on the information I had, I believed all of these things were possible, and trying to entertain all of them 24/7 was emotionally and psychologically exhausting. And that's why the most challenging part of the situation was the uncertainty.
Now you hear stories of survival or being captive, or people doing it for years, and they tend to find something that helps to get them through it. You're talking about the uncertainty, but what was kind of getting you through at least the isolation periods, or the hope to keep going? What like mentally kept you in the game?
So today I run my own speaking business, and I speak about this full time. And this is one of the key things that I talk about, essentially, how can we embrace and manage uncertainty? What did keep me going? And in corporate settings, I mean, the title of my presentation and session is Winning Through Uncertainty. And there were 3 key things that helped me during that time. And it took me some time to get to these 3 things. But when I reflect back, these were the most important. Number one, after several days of pacing back and forth, I finally stopped. I said, hang on, wait a second. Maybe there's some good in this situation, some positivity here. And to that, an inner voice replied and said, Sam, are you crazy? You've just been taken hostage. There's nothing good here. There's nothing to be grateful for. The best this will ever be is a period of your life you can forget. But I fought that inner voice, and I said, hang on, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for my health, my education. I'm grateful for the basic food and water I'm being given. I actually said to myself, I'm grateful for the air that I'm breathing, and that the guard who just delivered a boiled potato smiled at me for 1 second. I mean, these things may sound elementary or insignificant, but I found that each one of these small expressions of gratitude became this like silent rebellion against the uncertainty of the situation. So number one was to lean into gratitude. Number two, after channeling a little bit of strength from that gratitude exercise, I didn't want to then just sit around and do nothing. So despite being in an 8x8 cell, I wanted to take action. And this is a bit counterintuitive, because solitary confinement by definition means no action. There's no movement. It's confinement, isolation. But I wanted to take action and control the things I could control. Many things, maybe the majority of things, were out of my control. I couldn't control when or even if I'd be released. I couldn't control whether they finally figured out I wasn't a spy. But what I realized was that I could control my thoughts, my attitude, my prayers. I could control my exercise. I could control how much water I drank and when I went to sleep at night. I could control my routine within that cell. So number two was to control the things that I could control. And then number three, again, after several days and weeks of pacing back and forth, this strange transformative perspective began to emerge. I mean, being taken hostage was as insane of a situation as I could have ever imagined being in, but I began to realize and believe that if I could maintain hope and persevere through this, that would then better equip me to take on more challenges in my life going forward. And so recognizing this opportunity for growth as I came to see it was what helped fuel me to get from one second to the next, one day or week to the next. And I learned that there's sometimes with uncertainty, it can feel a lot different than what's actually happening. And so between leaning into gratitude, controlling things we can control, and recognizing uncertainty as an opportunity, those were, when I reflect on everything and consolidate all the thoughts, all of my experiences, those are the three key things that I found to be most helpful in my situation. And I also think can be helpful to others when we're facing our own reads of uncertainty.
You've been in 2 different jails in Syria. You've been there for about 3 months. Of all the people in the world, you could figure who could save me. Probably pretty low on your list is your sister's former college roommate. And also talk about the stages to get you out of the prison.
One of the most overwhelming things for me when I came home was learning about all of the people who were involved on the outside while I was trapped on the inside. I didn't know about any of it. And what I learned was that my family was working very hard to try to figure out what happened to me after going dark. They were working with a range of agencies from the FBI, the CIA, State Department, White House. Pope Francis was involved, Middle East NGOs, private sector security companies. About 3 weeks into my captivity, my younger sister, Stephanie, decided she needed to call someone and talk to them about this and just blow off some steam, and decided to call her former college roommate. And all of this was against the recommendation of the U.S. government of keeping all of this communication very tight. And it turned out that my sister's former college roommate is Lebanese, and her uncle is good friends with the head of Lebanon's general security, kind of like the equivalent of the FBI here in the US. And he was able to mediate my release with his counterparts in Damascus. And that was how that came together. So really just couldn't be more grateful for the way that happened.
So when you actually find some kind of glimmer of hope that release might happen, like, what is your reaction? Are you thinking this is a trick of some sort, or this can't be real? Did it happen gradually, or was it just one day that they come to you and say you're out of here? Like we see in the movies.
Yeah, they came in they got me out, put me in a vehicle. We drove west towards the mountains, and nobody in the vehicle said a word. And I remember, kind of to your point, that the nice cars, the professional nature of the operation was making me think that this was either like really good or really bad. I'm about to experience one extreme of the so-called captivity spectrum here, but I don't know which one it is. And we came up to a checkpoint, and one that seemed to be some kind of significant border. And as we passed through, the officer in the vehicle sitting next to me, he tapped me on the leg and he said, "Sam, you're in Lebanon. You're safe now." And it turned out that these were Lebanese special forces and had come in and gotten me out.
That's such a crazy, insane story, what you went through and all that. You always still seem positive as you talk about your travels and how they're good people in the world. How hard is it to say good things about the people of Syria when you went through so much with the country of Syria?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a complicated relationship with Syria, but interestingly, some of the best hospitality that I've experienced anywhere in the world has been across the Middle East. And maybe, I don't know if you guys have visited there or if you had a similar experience, but one of the challenges that I have as a result is how I portray the country of Syria with this experience, because the people are fantastic. They're so hospitable. They're incredible. The government is a different story. And I think this is the case in a lot of countries around the world when we have authoritarian leaders and instability happening. But underneath all of that, in any country, not just Syria, underneath all of that are people. And we're all fundamentally the same. The overwhelming majority of people are well-intentioned, proud of their country, happy to help others. And that was my experience with the Syrian people, but it's different with the government.
Sure. Now, when you get out of this situation, and even maybe today, do you still have any remnants of like PTSD or dealing with these things, or do memories still come back to you? Are you still like interested in traveling to countries? Like, how have you changed, and how have you kind of stayed the same after this?
So I still have the occasional kind of mild PTSD episode. Sometimes if I'm going to sleep at night, there were these kind of during my captivity, so-called forks in the road, where I reflect and think, oh, my situation could have gone this way, could have gone this way. And so sometimes emotionally, psychologically, I can end up back at one of those forks and start thinking, oh, what if it would have gone differently? And that can sometimes lead to these mild episodes. Thankfully, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by just great people and have had a lot of support and working through all of those challenges. And it's an ongoing process. But I'm not traveling too much internationally now, and it's not that I wouldn't want to. I'm just I'm still traveling quite a bit, but most of it is in the U.S. or within North America for speaking. But I would recommend and encourage anyone to travel as much as they can. I think it's, as I mentioned, the best education that I've ever had. So certainly recommend it. I don't know that travel will ever be as central to my life as it was during this previous chapter, but the world always will be. And I feel fortunate to be able to lean on those perspectives in a range of situations today.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because you brought up Syria was 181. I'm kind of curious, how long did it take you to check 182 off the list? Like, are we talking months? Did you need like a whole year to veg out, or what happened?
Yeah, it was a couple months, but more significantly than the time was actually like these conversations with my parents, with my siblings, with my family, because they had gone through a horrible situation, not knowing what had happened and everything that had transpired. So I actually promised my mother that I wouldn't travel anywhere until she was okay with it. And that took a little bit of time. But at the same time, they knew how much time and energy and resources I had put into the journey. And so it was a balance there, but it took a little bit of time.
So you had mentioned the book earlier in the cast, but let's talk about it real quick again. You have the book coming out. What was that experience like? I know you've done a million interviews about your story. You're with us now, but it's a little different when it's you, a pen and a paper, or a keyboard, and someone helping you get your story together. But what was it like actually penning the story? Did it bring up things you may have forgotten that entered the book? And what was it like putting this into a book?
Yeah, there were certainly things that putting the pen to paper, as you said, did bring back some different thoughts and different things, which overall I found writing the book to be somewhat therapeutic and getting it out there, putting it out to people. There were a range of challenges. One was just the fact that the story includes, a travel journey to every country in the world, heads of state, high stakes diplomacy, celebrities. And there are a lot of considerations when putting a story together that includes those variables. So it took a little bit of time to reflect and consider how to put that forward. However, in addition to those things, and I think more importantly, it's also about what my family and I all learned through this experience that we believe can help others today. It's about how we can all turn our own challenges and adversities into assets. I mean, I don't want to be known for the things that happen to me. I want to be known for the way I've responded to them.
Sure.
And I hope that this book will equip readers to adopt a similar mindset and implement it into their own personal, professional, and spiritual lives.
Sam, we can't thank you enough for giving us time tonight. I mean, it's such an incredible story. It's such an emotional story. It could easily break some people, but I can see how you're still believing in the world, believing in the good of people, and telling the story and really showing everything to everybody. If people want to know about like some of your speaking engagements or where to get the book or where are the best places to find out what's going on with your life, where can they go?
Thanks. Yeah. So Sam Goodwin, I'm on all the usual social media platforms. Please feel free to reach out. Any of the listeners, I'd be happy to connect with you for any reason. Feel free to send me a message, but you can find me online. You can get the book on Amazon or everywhere that books are sold, and appreciate all the support and just appreciate you guys reaching out and having me on. It was great to chat.
Absolute pleasure. And final question, without going into any direction on politics, we got the election tomorrow. Is there any result that makes you say, "Oop, maybe I had to book a ticket come Wednesday or Thursday," out of curiosity?
You know what? I'm kind of at a point right now where I don't know that much could really surprise me tomorrow.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
the range is pretty wide, and I don't think much could surprise me. But hopefully things go smoothly.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you so much. We wish you luck with everything you're doing and all. And if you have more projects to come up, we'd love to have you back on the show one day.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Sam. Sam Goodwin. I'm a little upset because I have been trying for 10 years or so and finding ways to get you into a Syrian prison for not doing anything. I've been working on this. I've been using AI to give me suggestions on how to arrest someone from America and be sent to a foreign prison, and I have had no results.
I mean, maybe you should set the bar low.
Lower. Maybe put me in like a local county prison to start with. And like after I get off on good behavior, then work your way up to like other countries. Maybe send me to a Canadian prison. And, don't go for the A class right away, buddy. And know your boundaries. And I'll start on the C level, work yourself up to a B minus. And before you know it, I'm going to be tortured by ISIS.
That does sound like a well thought out approach. So like a local frame job gets you in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be here for you, buddy, and I'm all for like lifetime in Middle Eastern prison for you and all to make yourself happy. But you got to work for it, man. You got to do the right steps and all. I'm not going to just go over to Syria and make your dreams come true. I'm sorry, man. You got to really get a plan going.
Well, Sam Goodwin, very good guest. Alan from last episode, very good guest. And so let's just say that we have a streak of 2 good guests in a row, I would say.
Well, I mean, it could be further considering some things are not there anymore. But...
Well, what Mike is referring to and what I'm referring to, a couple weeks ago, we released the episode with Zap from American Gladiators. Ray Hollins.
Ray Holland.
Now, this is the second time we had her on the show. We had her on the show many years ago.
Episode 186.
Perfect. And in what I would consider one of our worst interviews to date. It's very depressing, very slow. She was kind of all over the place. So it became this kind of joke among me and Mike that, well, it wasn't like, even if it wasn't a good interview, it'd be like, well, it wasn't Zap, it wasn't Zap level. We'd say things like that. We put them in categories. So we were doing this American Gladiator thing where we had Laser and Ice on the show in January, who are both fantastic. I loved both of them.
Yep. Go back to those episodes.
And so I was doing this little Gladiator expose thing. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny to try to bring Zap back almost for laughter, like an inside joke to us, but also like a redemption story. Maybe the
Full
second
circle
time,
moment.
the second time around, with the documentary out and things like that, she would knock it out of the park, and we would laugh about it and be like, well, Zap 2.0 was great. Zap version 1, horrible. So we interviewed her in probably January-ish, February-ish. We'll get into the interview in a second, but it did not go well. It did not go well. And if you were wondering why we never released the third episode of our game that we were playing, it was kind of because we thought the interview was horrible, and we got some better interviews after that, and we're like, we're going to put these out.
Yeah, we had a couple in there
There are like slow talkers or long talkers and stuff like that. And we literally look at each other. It's like, okay, we can't put Zap in between that. There's just no possibility. Some at least were interesting, but to put that in the middle, then it would just been basically the baseball team that goes 7-23 in a month. You just go, no, we can't allow that.
Yeah, like if you're trying to attract new listeners and you have like 3 duds in a row, it's not going to help our case.
No.
So we said, let's put Zap out at some point. Let's put it on their back burner. Now, Mike, why don't you guide us through your experience of interviewing Zap the second time?
Well, yeah, it's kind of, you said it was a running joke. The first interview with Zap. For those wondering, we had Al Snow also on that episode, and Al Snow was an excellent guest. I would say the first time we had Zap, it was bad, but in my opinion, as I kind of said, like off the record, I never thought of it as like the worst. And the reason I said it was I agree with like her pacing was weird, and she was like super into talking about how she was naked in front of John Ritter in a movie more than American Gladiators and stuff like that. But there were some interesting things. She brought up how she was like pregnant and doing these American Gladiator games. So I thought there was meat on the bone, if you will. This one was beyond a shadow of a doubt the most depressing, terrible, nothing redeeming about it. This last one, I will concur, was the worst episode of a worst interview of all time. Like, I even went back into some of our historically bad interviews, and I tried to say, okay, did any of them top this? And I was looking at like stuff like Butterbean, who was like a big grab for us, and he just one word answered us all the time. Daniel Pacina, who was the model for the original Mortal Kombat as Johnny Cage. Tony Wright, the sleep deprivation person. All of our motivational speakers, like really bad things. And as I examined each and every one, even if they were bad, there's almost a little bit of joy in how bad it was, if you know what I mean. Like, there's still something there to get a laugh about it and make a joke about it. There was literally nothing from that. I basically gave up trying to have fun on that interview 20 minutes in. Like, if you go back to the first 2 Gladiator episodes, I ended it with like a fun question of, if you weren't your nickname, what nickname would you have been? I didn't give a crap.
No, Mike was
what her answer would have been.
Mike was messaging me like in our little side chat we have while we talk to people, like, oh my God, I want to hang myself. This is the worst thing I've ever heard.
I was literally sad for it. And what kind of adds to like the anguish of that interview, like I could see why she didn't want to do it, because she was still in the, oh, I'm so scared. We're in this lawsuit with the for doing the documentary, and the people who own American Gladiators are going to sue us. Like, we did the interview in February, and I'm seeing like in March and April, she's like putting up all her American Gladiator stuff, and she's like, hey, I'm on a podcast and stuff like that, where it's just like, we got like 100% take Prozac depression zap, and then she just went, oop, I'm better, and went back to what could have been a fun interview.
Yeah, there wasn't much zap in the interview, that's for sure. It was pretty much a flat line.
Yeah, what is the opposite of zap? Whatever, like, what's the opposite of an electrical shock? That's what it was. I don't know if we have a term for it. Shenanigans. That's it. That's that episode, whatever we called it.
So we put it out the other day because we were in a week where we had no guests, and we're like, all right, she's finally going to see the light of day. Zap is getting her play.
And before you continue, there was a time and place, like, it's like, yo, we got a guest, and it's like, oh, I'm working on something. I'm like, is this the week?
Yeah.
Is this the week? Yeah, we got to know. It was literally a running gag for 4 months when we were going to get desperate enough to put that out.
Yeah, so essentially 9 months later, her interview saw the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I put out the episode the other day of the Halloween episode. Very proud of the Halloween episode.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened where I exported the episode, and it had like the same. I mislabeled Zaps as 489 by mistake. So it overwrote. So the Halloween episode was actually 489.
Mm-hmm.
So it overwrote the file that was labeled as 489. So I go to upload it to our podcast server, Podbean, and all of a sudden, like, it's like the file is showing on both episodes, like the Halloween episode and episode 488. Couple hours later, Dom texts me. He's like, I don't know. There's something weird going on where, like, the end of the episode, I can't play it, and it's playing the Halloween episode or something. Like, oh. And then our friend Groovy Joan on Twitter is like, I don't know, something's going on where I can't finish the old episode and the new one is and I'm like, uh-oh. So then I realized that I didn't just overwrite the episode on the podcast server. I think I overwrote it on my computer, meaning where I have all the files. Okay, now, so one would think this was on purpose, that I did it on purpose to get rid of it in the lore of Verbal Shenanigans, but no.
As you texted me, and like, you're going to think I did this on purpose.
Yeah. I accidentally erased Zap from
Existence.
from the folklore, from the existence. So Zap 2.0 is something that if you heard it, you were the only people who are going to get to hear it. Unless someone downloaded that file, we have no recollection. We have no versions of it left. Now, I might have the original files, and I could edit another episode together and put it back in with the same stuff. But the odds of me doing that are very low, very low. I can't even get to the newsletter during the week. I can't get to half the stuff I want to do. Never mind podcast consistently and keep.
How's Half Pints doing?
Yeah, exactly. It is half pints. It was full pints, but now it's pretty much dead pints. No pints. Yeah, full pints. Another perfect example. Something I really wanted to do. And I'm not throwing that idea completely away. I just have to figure out how we can actually do it.
On the side note, I'm thinking about throwing away the beer we got for full pints because I think we're a good year and a half past expiration on those beers.
Yeah. This is the problem. When we're not doing this full time, it's very hard to do other things than just this. It's even hard to get the weekly cast out right now with the two kids and things like that. So,
and get into fist fights at your comedy shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, time is very limited. So never mind hunting for new guests and schedule. Like, it's just becomes a whole thing. So I don't think Zap 2.0 will ever come back to the airways, but you never know. Maybe I'll slip it in there without saying anything to anybody, and it'll just be back.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it. There might be somebody out there who downloaded it who has like they can go to Antique Roadshow right now
Mhm.
with a little USB port, and it's like, I got the find of the century.
What if
I got the lost Zap Turbo Shenanigans episode right here.
What if the opposite happened? What if I overwrote all the other episodes with the Zap episode?
For 500, it's just 500 zaps. Just literally like, you know what? If you're depressed about Trump right now, we'll make you really depressed in life. You know, you'll come out listening to that and then be like, you know what? I love this guy. Let's do this.
Dee Snyder gone. Lenny Dykstra gone. Mark Summers gone. All Zap and lube talk, because I think that's what we talked a lot about, bubbles and lube bubbles. So,
yeah. Oddly enough, Kendra Erica stayed up there. That's weird.
Yeah, we have an interesting history of some of our guests like turning into basically porn stars on Instagram too. We kind
of noticed like maybe 6 months after the episode, we get a lot of cleavage from said guests.
So we interviewed this band called Seasons. They
Mm-hmm.
were like kind of like the Spice Girls. They were named after a season: summer, winter, spring, fall, autumn, whatever. And the one like, she's a good looking girl. All of a sudden, like I know
Christina Love.
Yeah, their Instagram wasn't them anymore, and she started her own. And then like every day, it seemed to be getting more and more and more salacious, if you will.
Yeah.
And now that's all she does. That's literally all she does. She just like shows her boobs and says like, "Hi guys," like in really weird, corny videos sometimes. So she does that.
Yeah, she has like an OnlyFans. She was on that Barstool show with Glenny Balls. She did that and all. I forget the name of it, but he interviews like OnlyFans models. So
yeah. Then Kendra Erica was this singer. She's basically half nude all the time. Then Rachel Pizzolato, who we didn't even really bring her on for her modeling. Really, it was more that she was on the Mythbusters. That's kind of what I want to talk about. Attractive girl. Now every single video or thing she posts is there's just boobs flying around everywhere.
Yeah, like everywhere. She's a sweet girl and everything, but she knows. She knows because like it did that for Halloween. She's like, "Oh, I'm in Tennessee and I'm gonna do one of those mountain coaster things and all," and it's just a forward picture of her and her boobs just jumping up and down the entire time, and all. She's like, "Whoa, it's scary," and all. It's like, no, I don't think you're doing it for the fear factor part, honey.
Even Janet Devlin, I believe her name was, from Ireland. She was like a folky type of singer when we interviewed her. The last thing she put out was like, the song was like Bad Daddy or something like that. And it's just like, she looks like the old Christina Aguilera video, like wearing nothing, boobs. I'm like, is it us or are they just like all geniuses and like, look, I'm going to actually make some money and just throw it out there?
Like when we talked about it, it's like funny. And then like one day, if you remember the nurse who sold her notes for like $2 million, like she's like, "Oh, I'm in Aruba." I'm like, "I'm seeing your boobs now? What's going on here?" It's like, am I going to see the body form doctor? Am I going to see the cheese sculptor just showing her ass? I mean, what's going on here? No, it's
Pat Cambyses,
and I'll be honest, none of you are looking bad. I give you a hand clap right there, but.
Berlo, did you check out Pat Cambyses' twerking video?
Oh, she's showing all the way inside her cave, Scott. Man, it's crazy. I didn't think you could show it on Instagram while getting thrown off.
Yeah, it is a little outrageous, but I guess there must be a rhyme or reason they're doing it. It has to be the insane amount of like perverted followers, and they must be getting some kind of cash grab from this behavior that's going on over there. Maybe it's time for us to step our game up a little bit.
Yeah. I'm thinking like Tiny Thong Thursday. You know, it's just an open competition. It's like, all right, Burlou starts off, and put on a thong. It's like, all right, Scott, can you get a tinier thong on? And it's just back and forth every Thursday until a winner is declared.
Oh, that is horrific to think about.
That's how we bring back Shenanigans Showdown, Scott. It's a thong off.
Well, you did say if you started your own OnlyFans, you would show those calves of yours.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
I
it's
was
time
looking in the mirror one time, like, hey, they ain't bad. They ain't shabby.
Maybe it's time to oil up those gams and start. Maybe like the video we put up, like instead of your face, we hear you talking. It's
just calves and all.
glistening.
Today we're
calves.
talking to Sir Anthony Hopkins. Well, first question, would you eat these calves?
Do these make you hungry in any way?
Yeah. Do you want fava beans with these calves?
Well, we got a lot to talk about, but I'm going to save some of that for next week. Got some things to go over here and unpack. I'll tell you some of the reasons we been on a little break these last 2 weeks, but I think it's time to get out of here, Mike. Interesting episode as always. Anything to promote before we get on out of here?
My calf and thong. Okay, that's what I'm promoting. No. Now I know all of you, if you hear the word singer and Burlew, get a little scared thinking of last week, but there is a talented Burlew singer, and that's my lovely wife, Izzy Burlew. She just put out her album on Spotify, Apple Music. Look up Izzy, Izzy Burlew. She has put out a full album with 12 songs. Shatter the Patterns is the name of the album. She's an absolute beautiful singer. I love her. I'm not trying to Dom Bagnato this thing, but I will tell you she is talented, and you should check her out on Spotify. Izzy Burlew, Shatter the Patterns.
And I will promote friend of the show, great comedian, KP Burke. KP Burke, he's a host of the
American Loser podcast.
American Loser podcast. He's done different versions of it over the years with his dad, and then like more short videos. And he's kind of transferred that into his first published book.
Oddly enough, he's also a part of a disappearing episode as well.
That's true. But he's from the creator of the American Loser podcast. It is called History Isn't Boring. Your Teacher Was. Mind-blowing stories from American history in 90 seconds or less. So it's a quick read, just different chapters of some crazy stories in history. Him and his dad are big history buffs. They do a great job. So go support him. You can get his book on Amazon, I believe, right now. And again, that's History Isn't Boring. Your Teacher Was. Okay. I want to thank Sam for coming on the show. I wonder what was worse for him, the Syrian prison or sitting through this episode. So,
well, don't worry. Once you put up the next episode, it'll be gone. So don't worry about it.
And I want to thank Zap for coming on this episode again. No,
yeah, Scott. And I'll put an A at the end of that right there. Okay, don't mess it up again.
Yeah. Well, that's it, guys. Keep supporting, keep listening. We'll be back. We got a whole bunch of cool things lined up. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more frequency again as we head into the holiday season. Guys, life is funny. Laugh at it. Keep the wind at your back.
Let's see that Burlew thong. That thong, the thong, thong, thong.
Tiny Thong Thursdays. Tiny Thong Thursdays. Tiny Thong Thursdays.
Yeah.
Diddy party.